Good. Good morning, folks. I'm Larry Davis. I own Fox Tracks. We're a full-service marketing agency. We're located in Savage, Minnesota. This is my 23rd year of business, so we've been doing this for a long time. Obviously, the world of print and marketing has changed drastically since when I started the agency, as you can imagine. And we work with both small and large companies, and what I'm going to share with you today is some of my years of experience of helping companies brand, establish their market, reach their market, and sometimes have to make a change, and sometimes they need to change and rebrand because their market has changed. So those are the kind of things we're going to talk about, because I believe there's a lot of things in brand power. These are what we're going to cover. I'm going to cover the history and benefits of branding. I'm going to cover branding and rebranding planning, the market, the message, strategic orientation. It's an exercise I use with a client to determine the best way for them to budget their budget. The creative, the idea box, strategy execution, and last but not least, you cannot get away from doing anything in the marketing and branding unless you have evaluation and metrics. Because how do you know if you're getting an ROI on your time or your efforts, right? Brander, to burn. That's where the word branding came from. It's an old Nordic origin. The practice of producers burning the mark or the brand into their products. This goes all the way back into the age of the Vikings. A woodmaker would make a handle for an axe, or they would make a pot that they would use in their small little log cabins at the time, I guess. And he wanted to mark his pot or his tool from the others, so they created they would burn very, very simple, and then of course it went on to, as we know, in cattle and everything else. So that's where the word comes from. So it's been around for an awful long time. Branding. This is my definition. It's a promise delivered. Your brand is only everything within your company. That's why it's so important. I really believe it's everything in your company. Marketing is where, when, and who you deliver the message or promise to. The market interacts with your brand if they see a reward in the promise and they trust you to keep that promise. Okay? A lot of people very, very commonly mix up marketing and branding. They are two different things, and this is how they differ. So this is an important thing, I believe. There are a lot of ways to describe what a brand is. It can be a collective perception. It can be a relationship, a definition of function and emotional benefits. What I mean there, an intention. It certainly is an asset. I talked about that in the article. Where does it show up in a balance sheet, right? A lot of people don't think of that when they look at a balance sheet, but it should be in the balance sheet somewhere. And it definitely has financial value. When people do an acquisition, a lot of times the power of that brand will add a lot of zeros to that final sales price of that business. Brands help simplify and accelerate decision making. This, from a marketing standpoint, is why I think it's a very, very important thing to talk about with every single client we come and interact with, whether it's a simple mailing, a new business card design, or a new website. Of course, these, I'm sure you'll probably see some slides like this today from other folks, but of course, these are the world-renowned brands. As of 2015, the number one known brand in the world is Apple. The next one is Google, and it goes on in the whole world. And those ones you see in large are the ones that have the most interaction on a daily basis. And it's kind of amazing to me. You would think that, but boy, you know, we all have iPhones, and every time we check in our iPhone, guess what? Jing, jing, it rings up an interaction with the Apple brand. Branding or rebranding plan. Now, you have to have a plan. Everything you do in business has to be a planned strategy. And this is basically, I'm going to walk you through real quickly the important details that go into building a branding plan. First of all, it's the mission statement. I believe every company should have a mission statement, short, medium, and long. They should have a current vision statement. And we could spend hours going through this. So if you're wondering what those things are or mean, please come look me up. We'll talk about it. Future vision, core values, product, service, and/or purpose definition. What do you do? Why do you do it? Target markets. Who are your audiences? Competitive advantages, the story you wish to tell. Visual image of a brand and logo, of course. A lot of people think branding is just the logo. You see down on my list, it's all the way down to number 9. Even though I've designed probably, with my graphic arts background, I've probably have designed, I don't know, 400 logos for companies in town. Budget is very, very important. You have to have a budget in mind. And this is also something else very important. Who will be responsible for what I call brand tending? And I got that name brand tending from a local author who's actually nationally renowned. He does consulting for a lot of people across the country. His name is Dan Day. I don't know if you know anybody else knows Dan Day, but he lives in Savage, Minnesota. Him and I had the fortunate to work on a project and a seminar together a few years ago. I got the chance to meet him, and actually, if you put your card in Pat's bowl today coming in, I'm going to give away a copy of his book. So at the end of this, so please, but that totally deals with who in your organization is the brand tender, and how do you build that culture and philosophy of brand tending. Now we're going to talk about the market. I think we all know what that is, right? That's your audience. But a company's market is composed of anyone who has or may one day have the need for your product or service and has the ability to make or influence the purchase. Most people get that first part of that sentence, right? But they forget about the second part of that sentence. Has the ability to make or influence the purchase. So maybe it's if you're doing it's a blogger who has a lot of influence in the social media market, right? Well, that person giving your product or service a good review may not be buying the product correct? But he could have a huge influence. He or she could have a huge influence of what the audience thinks about your product. That's why just basically Google reviews and things like are very, very Yelp and all those things are very important. Markets can be divided into sub-markets based on segmentation, variables, demographics, psychographics, benefits sought. Most markets can be organized into many sub-markets. Actually, I've hardly ever ran into a market in all my years that can't be broken down into a sub-market, okay? And it should be, because that's the only way you're going to get accurate planning, and you're actually going to really be able to guide efficiently your marketing dollars. Here's our example. I'm going to give you my example. This is the one I have for my own company. We seek small to medium-sized businesses or divisions of large businesses who need help in developing or implementing a marketing plan or strategy. Ideally, they need the elements designed or produced to support the strategy, because I own my own printing equipment and my own designers. They see benefit in working with a one-source, intelligent, trusted, and reliable partner. That is that right there is my example. But I also have, and I encourage all of you to have in your market statement, businesses you want to avoid or people you want to avoid. Why? Because when we all start out in business, we want to help everybody, right? And we want to, and we're hungry, and we just need the business. We don't care. They can breathe on a mirror. We want to service them, right? But as you get in there for a while, some of us who are a little longer in the tooth will tell you that is not an efficient way to run your marketing statements, or your marketing your targeting your strategy. So this is the businesses I try to avoid over my years. Those in chaos, no budget, clueless, no business plan, unethical, and those who disrespect their employees, customers, or competitors. Nowadays, I usually ask that in my first interview. I give usually an hour consulting free for any business. I'll come right out and ask them, and sometimes they're, why are you asking me that? I feel kind of offended by that, because the fact is that, like I said, I've been doing this a long time. My time is very, very, very valuable. It's not a fit if you're that. I encourage all of you, when you write your target statement, not only write into that plan who you want to reach, who don't you want to reach? The message. Simply put, the full value proposition, which is my description and many, many other marketing professionals' descriptions of the message, is made up of the primary and secondary value points important to your primary market segments. That's kind of a bunch of long words, I understand, but the fact is that basically a primary value point, they're always emotionally driven. There's something that's desired or that's something that's feared. You got to tug at their emotions, even in a B2B environment. You have to. If you can put that in first into your marketing messages and into your target communication, that you'll have a much leg up on your competition. Why? Because the secondary value points are typically what everybody wants to talk about first. And those secondary value points are always rationally driven. They're a list of products and features and benefits. And you can just puke those things all over people if you want. I mean, you want to bore them to death. Because the fact is, unless you tie into that, unless you tie into their really their wants and needs and desires, guess what? Their eyes kind of fog over and they just blah, 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 blah. That's how your features and benefits will come across. So consumers make purchasing decisions based on primary value points, and they justify them with the secondary ones. Unique selling proposition. This is still one of my favorites. You saw my last time I spoke. I used that then. In fact, I use this almost in every presentation I give. My good old buddy Dan Kennedy is fantastic. I think he's the very best at direct marketing that I can think of. And he says this: why should I, your prospect, do business with you versus any and every other option available to me in your category? That's what you're trying to define when you're setting up that message. Here's our example. Fox Tracks, creative, responsive, and committed to your success. Your one-source marketing, print, and web solutions provider, your marketing partner. That's an example of one. Positioning statement. A positioning statement is basically the long written out explanation of that short and sweet target message. And it varies for companies and organizations, so we're not going to spend too much time on that, but that's basically the long version of what I just showed you. Strategic orientation. This is very, very important. And I haven't heard a lot of people ever talk about this, so hopefully this is new to you. You basically have 4 directions, as you'll see from this slide. You have market orientation, which is sales focus. You've got market focus, where you really, in the listening phase, you really like to listen to your customers. You try to give your customers everything they possibly want, right? You have the societal, where you're very, very PR-based, or you're very, very community-oriented. You're not about profits, but you're really more about helping the community. And you're in the production mode, where you actually make something or you inventory something. It's all about the product, right? Now, almost every company I've ever become engaged with needs all 4 of these, okay? But some need to put focus on some directions rather than other directions. So typically what I'll do, and I just did this for my own company, you'll see where I'm going this year because I just did this. Last year I mapped myself out as right there in the blue. And so, you know, obviously I run press equipment. I have sign equipment. We do digital production. We have a very active production company. Okay, so obviously we have to concentrate on production. So my goal hasn't changed. You know, I'm still a 7 on there, and I'm still aiming to be a 7. Market orientation, sales. You know what? I get a lot of word of mouth, a lot of referrals. I haven't needed outside sales too much, okay, so over the years. But the fact is that, you know, as I'm trying to move my son more into the business and I'm spending less time in the field, I'm starting to think, okay, this is an area I need to head in. Market, listening to the clients. I'm going to talk about that one in a second. Why I'm a 2 and why I stay a 2. And societal. I do a lot of stuff for nonprofits and things like that, but I'm not like a church or a nonprofit. A church and a nonprofit usually score about 9 or 10 down in that societal, of course, and very, very low in the production type of things. But once you map this out, it gives you a clear guideline of how you're going to spend your time and budget. For example, I'm going to throw this one. This is a very interesting thing I found under Packaging World magazine, this article. About a year and a half ago, Tropicana did a focus market, and this is why you can't always listen to your customers. They did a focus market group across the country, And they had a marketing company give them some pretty good, strong indication that your packaging was old and outdated. You needed to change your packaging. And so they did that. They listened to the market that they thought were the customers, and they went and changed their packaging. They took away the straw and the orange, and they went to the packaging on the left. Maybe you saw this. It was in the markets for a very short period of time. In 1 month, nationwide, the company lost 20% in sales. In 1 month. It cost them millions of dollars to revert this back. And they listen to their customers. Now, why don't I listen to my customers? Of course, I love my customers. Of course I listen to you. Part of the things I do is a free consulting to make sure I know where you're going and where you want to go. But the fact of the matter is, if I would have stayed and listened to my customers 10 or 15 years ago, where I was just strictly in print and mail, I wouldn't have moved my agency to web. I wouldn't have moved my agency to incorporating social media. I wouldn't have moved into SEO. I wouldn't have moved into trying to combine all the channels and try to build the most efficient engine for my clients. Because back the time when I started moving this, I'd go to some of my clients, they didn't even have a website yet. They go, well, what do I need a website for? I don't need a website. I'm a contractor, or I'm a meat market. But the fact of the matter is that you can't always listen to your customers, especially in a high-tech field or I think in a marketing field. They're not sure what they need. And so if you base your focus on what you think they might need, you might end up like Tropicana. The creative, this is the one I love, of course, but the creative process will use the language, graphics, and design components that most effectively reach and persuade the target markets. After you know who your audience is, right, and you've got it carefully defined, you've got it broken down into sub-markets, it's pretty easy to tell what they really want from possibly your company, right? But you got to find a unique way to deliver that. To connect with the market, use primary value points. I'm stressing this again. This is how important it is. Supported with secondary value points. This is absolutely important. I've done ad campaigns where the client really wanted to focus on what they do, and we tugged and warred and we arm wrestled over it, and I said, no, I want to focus on what you're going to deliver to them emotionally. What kind of how are we going to excite them? And we tried it their way, and we've come back, and they came back and tried it my way, and the campaigns outperformed extremely better. And I've seen it in many industries time and time again. Shout out, yeah, but do it uniquely. The idea box. Everyone, a business owner or marketing professional, needs an idea box. Who has an idea box here? Okay. What is not good? An idea box is whenever you see something that you think is really cool, that you think might be good messaging, unique communication, whether it be for your industry or not, you stick it in a folder, you stick it in a box. This isn't actually my idea box. It's not that fancy, but it's an old paper box. But the fact of the matter is that I have it in my office, and my staff, I've got them trained too. If they see something really cool and they think Larry might think it's cool, you better put it in Larry's idea box. Because if I go through the recycling bin at the end of the night and I see a bunch of cool stuff in my idea that should have been in my idea box, I walk around and say, why didn't you put that in my idea box? Did you see that? Well, yeah, I saw it. Throw it in the idea box. Once a month, I go through my idea box and throw out things that are really bad. But we all need an idea box, okay? So that's a very try it. I don't care. It can be for whatever kind of business you do. It's easy. It doesn't cost anything, and it can have a very good impact on your business. Strategic execution. That's a big subject. But basically, I say that's time we roll up our sleeves. Okay, we've got the plan right, we've got the audience, we know what the budget is, we know who's going to be the brand tender. Now it's time to roll up your sleeves and get to work and start to apply. But I'm going to give you my tips for brand promotion, and this is what I've learned over 23 years. Be unique, tell your story. That's my number one tip. Small companies sometimes see a big company advertise and they say to me, Larry, we want to do like this. But sometimes I've got big companies that say, Larry, we want the message to look like it came from a small company. So the fact of the matter is that you need to be unique. Brand orientation strategy. Take time doing that exercise. Know from where you're going to allow your time, budget, allocation, and alignment based on those strategies. Continue to provide great products and services. Hey, you're not going to build a good brand at the end of the day if you're providing a shitty service. I'm sorry. Or a crappy product. Because you know what? Nowadays, with social media and with Google Local and all these things going on and the way we all network, we can quickly pass a bad report on about you and your company. It can go across the country in minutes. Okay, so the fact of the matter is, really, you have to focus more on that today than you probably did 10 years ago. Be consistent. Consistency builds trust. Don't have 10 versions of your logo. Okay. Have a couple, maybe use it for black and white or color. Be consistent with your fonts. Be consistent with your website writing. If you're keyword rich on your website, make sure you are on your LinkedIn. Make sure that you follow the same message onto your Facebook, your Google+. If you're doing blogging, if you have a blogging style and it seems to be working, why reinvent the wheel? Be consistent. It'll pay off. Empower your customers. This is one thing, and actually I think maybe that I may have misspelled empower there, but empower your customers. Remind them to please share their experiences. And you know, that's the thing. And sometimes you got to remind them. You know, you think you've done a good job for them. You see them all the time. When's the last time you asked them to go give you a good review? When's the last time you asked them, hey, could you know somebody you might be able to pass my name on to? Evaluation. Successful brand power, increased business, right? That's what we want, right? That's the biggest thing people come to me for. They're coming to me because they want to increase business, right? I need more revenue. But there's more to it than that. It's a little more complicated than that. While the ultimate goal of any brand promotional program is increased sales, it's important to keep in mind that sales process has 4 phases. Getting attention, raising interest, arousing desire, and stimulating action. Those are the 4 processes of a sales process. And sometimes, based on budget and based on time, you need to tackle those one at a time. You have to set your goals accordingly. For example, if you're new to the social media realm, you know, just getting attention is a huge goal. Let's try to get so many likes, or get so many let's try to get engaged in so many conversations, join so many groups. Okay, but the fact is that you need to keep aware of that. That isn't just as simple as, hey, okay, we started this and 3 months later we're expecting a huge increase in revenue. If it was that simple, we'd all be doing it. Because you can look, again, everybody's after this, right? But the fact of the matter is, when evaluating the success of a promotion, these are the things that I like to analyze. Customer feedback, sales, of course. Has your sales increased? By what percentage of investment? You got to know those numbers. Web traffic. Has there been an increase in traffic on your website reflecting increased interest in your brand? Are they talking about you on social media? Are you generating more buzz? And we try to set up those strategies in the campaign. So we're measuring that and communicating that back to the client on a monthly basis. Social media reviews. Because you know what, at the end of the day, it all comes down to success. And everyone defines success differently. I mean, obviously a success for a company is I want to increase revenue, or I want to make a better environment for my employees. We all have our personal ideas of success. You know, more family time, more balance, what have you. Those are all things that we have to strive for. But the fact of the matter is, success doesn't happen by itself. It becomes by carefully planning, and carefully having a direction, and maybe seeking some professional help along the way. And the thing is that, and for me, I actually get I gauge my success on how I service and how I help the companies I serve. And for me, that's the largest portion of success. Thank you. I'm Larry Davis again. I'm always open for a conversation. I got coupons back there for a free hour worth of consulting. Love to help you. I got some very interesting things on my website as far as market audit planning sheets and a couple other things you may find of interest. And I'm always willing to help. I always have an open ear, and you know, we can either do some things together. If not, we'll have a good conversation. We'll still remain friends. Thank you very, very much, and I appreciate you being here today. Thank you.
Very good.